everyone, and welcome to Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails, the weekly podcast that helps you grow your business, improve your life, and enjoy yourself along the way. I'm your host, Allan Langer, and every week we try to bring you the best thought leaders, the best business leaders, and the best minds out there to help you succeed in business and in life. So sit back, relax, grab your pad, your pen, and your favorite beverage, and enjoy the next episode of Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails. This is Allan Langer, your host, and we are at episode 13 tonight. And the guests just keep coming and coming, and I've got a great one for you tonight. And actually, this one is, you're going to love this guest, especially if you're a woman. And I say that specifically, and you'll know why I say it once I introduce her. So, again, I always tell people get a pad and pen because you're going to want to take some notes tonight because I have a feeling we're going to get some really golden nuggets out of our guests. Before we get going, I want to remind everyone that we have a new segment that's been actually taking off a little bit. It's called Ask Allan. People have been emailing me questions that they want myself and the guests to answer at the end of the podcast. So you can go to my website, allanger.com. It's Al, A-L, and then Langer.com. Go to my contact section, send me the question, and if we choose your question, I'll send you a free book, and then we'll answer it on the air at the end of the podcast. All right? So without further delay, I am going to introduce a really cool lady who is doing something that I have never seen before because she has such a niche. Her name is Cathy Droz. I pronounced that correctly, Cathy, right?
You did. Thank you.
Okay. Cathy is an automotive journalist who has test-driven over 560 cars, okay? Her claim to fame right now, what has really brought her to the top of her game, is she developed a system called Her Certified. She's the founder and the CEO of Her Certified, and I'm going to let her talk about what that actually means. But she also has a book out that's called A Women's Guide to Buying a Car with Confidence and Street Smarts. And I love that because I've never seen something specifically tailored to a woman in the automotive industry. So, Cathy, I can't wait to get into this tonight. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So, is this where I cheers?
Yes, this is where we cheers. So we start the podcast. I have a little Woodford Reserve tonight, and you have a little cranberry and lime. Is that
yes, I do.
Okay, so Cathy is in Arizona. I, as everyone knows, I'm in Rhode Island. So cheers to being on the podcast. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you
You're
for
very
inviting
welcome.
me.
So tell me, again, I'm fascinated with anything about sales, but I really like when someone finds a niche and really knows what to do with it and is successful with it. So tell me why you ended up, well, first of all, before the sales stuff, how the heck did you start to test drive 560 cars? That's what I want to know.
Crazy. It's true. So the way it started, I'll go back just a little bit, is that I started my business as a advertising agency that catered to auto dealers only. So that was my niche to begin with because I didn't have a problem dealing with men that had that were running dealerships, and you know the reputation of the auto industry. Mm-hmm. Didn't have a problem with them. I did their advertising and marketing, and that's when I started gearing it more towards women because I knew 20 some odd years ago women were making the decisions, and if mama was happy, then everybody's happy, that type of thing. So my background was having this small ad agency that dealt with automotive, and then a major newspaper here in Arizona was looking for and asked me if I would test drive cars because everyone at the newspaper was fighting over the opportunity. Right. Because generally men are the ones that are up in the newspaper, whether it's auto news, etc. So I said, yes, but as long as I can write it like Sex and the City. You can imagine they edit it quite a bit.
So how long ago was this now?
20 some odd years ago.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So wow. I would test drive the vehicles. I would write a somewhat humorous, but also tongue-in-cheek. And they did a lot of editing. There are a lot of things I said they didn't want in there. But that's how I started. So the vehicles were delivered to my home. They still are, 12 years. So every Wednesday I get a different vehicle and I test drive it. not in the neighborhood, wherever I want to go. I can put as many miles on it as I want. Then at the time, all I did was write about it for the newspaper or for my website. And then it became, how do I say, as technology developed, so then there was photos, and then now I do video of it, and it goes up on YouTube, etc. So it really started as they didn't want to give a man the job. And I was thrilled with it. Absolutely. It's been great.
Wow. Well, kudos to them for realizing that was a good, a very unique way to go.
Right.
So whoever made that decision, that they deserve a lot of credit for that, especially 25 years ago. So.
Yes.
Wow. So, okay. So you parlayed that into an advertising agency, and now you decided to write a book. So give me the timeline on how you got to where you are today, and the book, and what you do now with car dealerships.
Okay. So the shorter version is the ad agency obviously gave me the name within the industry as a female who actually understood the process. What came of that is, therefore, women felt very comfortable coming to me and saying that they had a bad experience. Or my office was inside a large dealership. Right now it's owned by Warren Buffett. It's a Berkshire Hathaway dealership. And I was inside there, and I rented space. That was my office. And I would go downstairs to the floor, and I would hear the men say, "Oh, here comes a woman. We're going to do 10 grand. We're going to get $2,000 over that because look at her, or they would judging women based on how they would dress. Or they always ask them, is your husband coming? I don't really want to, start the process until your husband, so it's so typical. It's not that different now.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Taking all of that information, in 2006, 2009, the industry really took a fall. And I started to realize that I needed to do something more than doing with the ad agency. And a gentleman said to me, you need to write a book, and you need to do television, you need to do radio. I had my own radio show for a while called Two for the Road. So I would interview, and that was the best part, Allan, was when you reach out, like Allan Mullally, 2 days after he became the president of Ford Motor Company, I had the nerve to call his secretary and say, do you think Allan would want to be on my dinky little radio show? He was, and he was darling, and we still communicate to this day.
Great, isn't it?
So it was nice, Mario Andretti. You call up people and you say radio. Now we do podcasts, but it was a bigger deal. So with that, I had the knowledge of manufacturers and designers. I knew what the consumer basically did and didn't like, and I knew how dealers felt about their market. So someone suggested I write a book and teach women about how to buy a car. And I thought, you know what, you can find that on the internet. I think I need to teach women or explain to them to have confidence, because that is how I started. And that I will go back to. So at age 10, I started going with my dad every year to buy their family vehicle. And then by age 17, I had learned enough. I went into the dealership by myself and bought the vehicle. So we're talking 1960. I don't have to hide my age. So we're 68, 69, when not only did women not buy cars, they barely stood in the dealership with their husbands.
Yeah.
Purchased the vehicle. They thought Candid Camera was there. They were all thinking, but they said to my father, we couldn't believe that a 17-year-old bought the car. They never said because I was a woman. So I've always had confidence in buying cars. It never would occur to me that I couldn't negotiate, that I couldn't find that I couldn't say to them if their customer service was anything, below what I expected. I had no problem saying so. It could be from the East Coast also, that in me. So with that, I wrote the book, and it was very simple. The book is my story, which is more detailed than I told you, why I bought cars with my dad. Then it was the buying power of women. That takes 2 pages. And that's all the percentages of how the decisions that women make in everything from healthcare to obviously automotive, etc., and how women are more wealth is in women's hands. Then the chapters start. Each chapter ends with, if I owned a dealership, if Cathy Droz owned a dealership, I list 4 or 5 things that I would do differently. And I was never afraid to say that because it caught the eye of some manufacturers who asked me questions then. Why do you think it should be this way or that way? Which is kind of what we've evolved to with COVID-19 now anyway.
So you were pointing out at the end of your chapters what the dealerships should be doing differently toward women, essentially.
Towards human beings, almost.
Okay, yes. in general, okay.
Towards women, because the psychology of how men and women buy differently, not just cars, retail in general.
Yeah.
Men and women think differently, we're made up differently. So therefore, I was able to show, that takes me to, thank you, and a very good question. Good is the book. So a woman reads the book and she says, okay, fine. She goes in, she does what Cathy says, or she understands a little bit more. But if the sales staff is looking at you like, lady, what are you doing? I decided I would start a sales training program. And I do that live or then put it online. But So that's where we're at. So I believe that I have quite a few ingredients, which is the test driving of the cars, the manufacturer relationships, the dealer relationships, and then and the consumer. And when my book was read by the Allan Mulallis of the business, I said, did I say anything did I throw you under the bus too much? And they all agreed it was very fair, because it's not always the dealer. Sometimes it's the person trying to buy the vehicle.
Oh, so yeah, right.
Surmised where I'm at.
I can't tell you how much I love that, because so you're not only helping the consumer, but I love the fact that you're trying to change the mindset of the car industry and how they sell, especially to women. Because in my book, my concept is the very first chapter, the very first page I talk about, I did an impromptu study when I started to write my book. I asked 278 people that I met in a coffee shop over like a 3-week period, do you like meeting with or talking with a salesperson? And all 278 said no. It wasn't even like, sometimes. They were flat out, no, never. I hate salespeople. Like really, mean stuff. Like salespeople are not like, and at the top of the list, you get the perception of it's now a stereotype, the used car salesman. And that's not by accident. So for you to do this and for the dealerships that are actually saying we need help in trying to change our ways, I think is brilliant. So kudos to you. That's really good. So for the car dealership people that are listening to this, if you're for hire now, you can actually go in and train them online or however you do it, right? With a sales training?
Yes, I would love to be for hire. And where I made probably a poor business mistake is that I wanted to prove that it worked. I wanted to see the CSI scores raised from women. I wanted to see more women purchase vehicles. Mm-hmm. Problem with that is that I set up 2 or 3 pilot programs and did not charge them because I wanted to prove. And obviously I do social media. I do, they include me in their advertising and marketing, and I appreciate that. That was the trade-off, that they are certified. I wanted to be that J.D. Powers for auto dealerships for women.
So you have a certification then, which is what the HER certified is? Okay. So why don't you get into that? So, tell us what that means.
So the certification is based on the fact that there's a site inspection, and now I'm going to have to trust someone with a camera at the dealership. But I would go in with my team, which is one other woman, just so you know. 40 of us walk in. No. And we have a little checklist, and we go around and I put the list together because I know everything from how a dealership smells from the moment you walk in to how the receptionist treats you, to the bathrooms, to the lighting, to the service. Right? I know because of my research what turns women off. And so therefore I go around, I make my checklist, I go back to the general manager. I have actually had general managers reconfigure their dealership because of the entry in. When I walked into this Toyota dealership, the truck was like right in my face. I could smell the rubber of the tires. And men in general say, we never even thought of that. We never even felt like that was an issue because no one has ever said anything. And Allan, you know from, that's the other thing I found out is that women do not go in where I would go and say, you know what, gentlemen, that smell from the tires, I really think that you should do something about it. This is me not being me. That's just a consumer. Women don't say anything. They complain afterwards. And women are on social media. So when a woman has a bad, what do I want to say? She has a bad transaction or she doesn't like the way she was treated. She doesn't go and tell the general manager. They call me. What they do is they tell their friend. So 9 women tell 9 women and you've lost 45 people. Men, they don't say anything and they never tell their buddies what they paid for a car because the other testosterone person is going to say, oh, you overpaid. It's just different. So men, the auto dealer people do know that women have a lot of influence. They do know that. They just don't know what they don't know. I'm sure that's not your case. You know what women want in a transaction, I'm sure.
There we go. I was muted for a second.
I'm answering my own question.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, but if you're a good sales rep, you should obviously know what makes you got to read the people in front of you. And if, let's say you're a B2C, I spend most of my time in B2C and I always used to have, majority of the time I'd have a couple in front of me. You have to figure out who your ally is and assess the situation. Is the woman in charge or is the guy in charge in this situation? And if you just go in and say, well, I'm just going to sell to the guy, you're never going to be successful. And conversely, if you just say, I'm going to sell to the woman, the guy's not going to. So you're right. In certain industries, you're smart to understand the difference in how to sell between males and females. And now, it's a lot less gender specific now anyway. But I think the auto dealership, it was probably lacking significantly in that area. And you found that niche to help them fix it. Because you're right. They don't know what they didn't know. And now you're helping them figure that out.
Yes, I'm trying. Yes.
Yeah. So, all right. So tell us now, let's get into some of these. So for the salespeople that are listening, or even for the marketing people that are listening, who don't think about the different ways sexes think. They don't think about the different genders in front of them or how they could be different. Like you said, a woman who's upset is going to tell 9 women, where a guy is going to keep it to himself because he doesn't want his buddies to rip him because he spent too much money in the car. So what are some things that you could, the copy industry or the washer and dryer, and there's so many different industries that are going to sell to so many different people. Are there any tips that you would have? It's like, this is what you need to do to start figuring out how you can actually think about selling to a female.
So, Allan, one of the things that I found universally is that women, they want you to listen, just like a husband. We've always said, we don't want you to solve the problem. We'd like you to just let us talk it through sometimes.
Now, every guy in the audience.
Have you ever heard that?
No, I've never heard that in my life.
Because you're a problem solver, and so many people that they are. And so one of the things I suggest, and it actually goes by age. And we have so many millennials getting into the industry who are so used to being digital, they really don't know how to make that social conversation, as well as someone of my age who has certainly been around different people and situations and have not been glued to my digital devices. So I would suggest always that they start a conversation where they literally look that woman in the eyes. I cannot tell you that I've had women complain that when they sit down with their salesperson and they feel that there's contact, if the salesperson, male or female, looks away for even a second because maybe they heard a loud noise or whatever, women are totally insulted. It's a very fine line. They want
I see that, yep.
Their story, and believe it or not, they really don't want to hear yours, Allan.
No, never. It's never about the salesperson. And you know what? That's the hardest thing to train salespeople, is to shut the hell up and stop talking about themselves.
Right.
It really is. It's universal. And unfortunately, it's because most salespeople are trained just to make the sale. They're not trained to listen to the customer. And that translates into someone who's going to talk about themselves and their product. And, everything is just, they've lost the customer 10 minutes into the conversation.
And that's true. They want to be listened to. They want to, and many times, they also want to not only listen, but to retain. And this is what I say to sales people. Remember something in particular in that conversation. Let's say we go through, they have a nice experience. Mary Jo has mentioned to her salesperson, you know what, time is very important to women. And that is another thing that they have always felt is not respected by the salesperson. And I imagine whether you're selling appliances or cars, it's the same thing. Women in general, men not so much, but women say, I got to pick my kids up at 3:00. And they say to them, can we move along here? Mm-hmm. So they want respect for their time. That is for sure. Mm-hmm. And the old school way, I'm wearing a son's basketball shirt. So if I were to walk into a dealership 15 years ago, the salesperson is taught to say, oh, okay, son, she likes basketball, something about it, okay, right?
Yes.
Or, oh, she's, I'm observant. She has 2 car seats in the back of her car when they pull up. Nowadays, we don't care about that. If you came up to me, I'm sure you would say, oh, you're a big basketball fan. I'm going to say to you, yes, I am. End of story. Please don't go into 55 stories of when you were with the Rhode Island Clippers, which we know don't exist.
But correct me if I'm wrong. If I asked you that question, you'd probably lose a little respect for me because it's not genuine.
It's not genuine. You're right. I tell a story to a staff where I had a man, not a woman, walked in, and he had on a Notre Dame hat. Mm-hmm. And the salesperson went, oh, you went to Notre Dame? My cousin went to Notre Dame, this, that, and the other thing. And the gentleman said, no, I bought it at Goodwill for 55 cents. So you don't know what you are. Don't talk too much and so forth.
Yeah, so, you can't assume and stuff like that. And it's just so fake when you start bringing that stuff up. You try to make, fake conversation or, oh, it's how's the weather today? It's just, it's so awful.
It is. And from sales. So for me, for customer service, what I suggest is, so a man and a woman walk into the dealership, whoever has the up, which by the way, I tell women and men, you do not have to accept that up. And for someone who doesn't know what an up is, it is the rotation of the next salesperson. And so it's a crapshoot as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
Let's say I go in alone. I am a female. I now get an up with a, 50-year-old man who's been there for 25 years. He's pretty much just threw a cigarette out. Mm-hmm. And he comes over and he knows everything, right? And he's going to just help this little lady with her deal. I tell women and they say, oh my gosh, Cathy, it actually works. I say, if you're uncomfortable for any reason, you politely ask if you could please work with a different salesperson. In many cases, do you have a woman working? I'd like to work with a woman. And they are taught, and I say to them, do not be insulted because I know you guys will probably share the deal in the end anyway. Mm-hmm. That is respect. Because a young person generally would like to work with someone who's really good with technology, the way cars are today. Mm-hmm. Actually, I would at my age. I don't want someone my age showing me how to get Bluetooth. So it's little hints like that, but that also ties into the confidence. Women are afraid maybe to say that. well, you don't have to be afraid. I'm not yelling. I'm just politely saying, nothing against you, sir, but I would just really like to work with a woman. And they are trained to say, not a problem. And if they don't have a female, they give another suggestion.
Gotcha. So clearly now, so this is a question I did write down, and I am going to ask because I'm famous for writing down a bunch of questions and never getting to them because I just talk and we have great conversations. So obviously, since you started this and since you wrote the book, the world has changed.
Yes.
And obviously in 2020, it's changed significantly. So from COVID to the George Ferguson murder to Black Lives Matter, everything has changed. And I think it all will be for the better, even though we're going through a tough time to get there. Mm-hmm. Two questions for you. One, has the attitude of women changed in a sales situation like that? Do they have more confidence because the years have gone by and they realize that they can be stronger and they're allowed to make decisions? And what about the LGBTQ community? You know, when I deal with some companies and I talk to their marketing, it boggles my mind that segment of the population is not marketed to. It's very specific, you know, some specific companies do that, but so many don't. And I think it's such a huge mistake. And is there a certain way the car dealerships can deal with this, or is it kind of all the same thing?
Great question, because I suggest if you were going to hire, the perfect people to me as salespeople are women, our LGBT community, gay, lesbians, mm-hmm. retired, and military.
Okay.
There's something about customer service is already in their DNA. And they are, and I'm not stereotyping, but you are absolutely right. Why the dealerships do not gear towards that community, which big advocate.
It's not like a little community.
It is not little. And statistics, and I'm only giving statistics now, not my opinion, statistics show that the majority buy luxury vehicles. Yeah. So I have a Lexus dealership, and he is very good with the community. Very, very, very good. They buy BMWs, Audis, Mercedes-Benz. Okay. They also want to be treated. I've had gay men say to me that they will go in without their partner because they don't want to be prejudged. They don't want to see maybe snickering. Mm-hmm. You know that Saturn, which no longer exists as a brand, mm-hmm. was voted number 1 vehicles bought by lesbians. So I researched that years ago.
Yeah.
Because the Saturn dealerships were set up with no negotiating.
Exactly. I bought a Saturn, I don't know, 15 years ago, whatever it was. But there was no negotiating. That was the price.
No negotiating because women, the lesbian women, did not want to go through the judgment of it, the negotiating of it, and everything else. So it was in automotive news. It was the number 1 choice. I mean, Subaru is a great vehicle. It's right. You're not settling by any means.
Right.
The community that you are talking about, we have a very large community here in the Phoenix area, which is their own magazine. I mean, you can advertise anywhere, but mm-hmm. you also need to have on your staff the mirrored image of it. I certify a Toyota dealership in the Phoenix area, and they have a very large Muslim community mm-hmm. purchases vehicles. Well, thank goodness they have 2 or 4 now of Muslim faith that are at the dealership, because I made a big mistake when I trained there. I said, you always shake the hand of the woman first. I said, duh, we all know this. Gentleman raised his hand. He said, ma'am, I deal with Muslims. If I were to shake the hand of a woman first, I would never have the sale. So I said, well, there you go.
Yep.
You want to bring in more women, have more women selling. You want to bring in more of your Hispanic community, have more bilingual and Hispanic people. Yep. That's another. We have a very large Hispanic community here. And the biggest insult, and my husband is Hispanic, so I can say this, the biggest insult Hispanics will say is when a dealer or maybe any retail organization puts on their advertising, se hablo español. So that means we speak Spanish. And 9 times out of 10, it's, some white chick like me who took class for 2 years who can barely get it. I mean, it's ridiculous. So wow. Now they realize that, match your community, if nothing else. Yeah. But I with you, the LGBT community is large and wonderful to work with, but they're very customer focused.
Very customer focused, I think, and yeah, yes. I don't know. It always blew my mind that it was sort of like a, it's like the systemic racism in the world. Right. That bleeds over to the LGBT community, where there's the homophobia of the world. It's just not talked about as much, but it's been there forever.
Right.
So anyway, I just want to get your take on that, and that's awesome. So give us a couple of tips. So you wrote your book, and your book not only helps women get some confidence to buy a car, but it also helps dealerships learn how to sell to women. Am I saying that correctly?
The book is really for the consumer.
It is, okay.
Manufacturers, because I never wrote the book to be a bestseller, let's face it. It's available on Amazon. I've probably sold 11. No, I'm kidding.
I'm sure you sold 11.
I think 11 just about. But what I was smart enough, I think, to know that it was going to be equivalent to a business card, in the sense that it took me almost a year to write it because I have to be very factual and fill 190 pages. However, I realized that I would be giving them away so that the manufacturers and or dealers would have to know what I'm teaching women, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So that's what the book was for. Where I saw the business end was in the training. And then I added on I want to call it a kiosk. I came up with the idea. On my board of advisors is the former vice president of Starbucks. So I went to him and I said, I don't want a franchise, but I've come up with this idea. And it sits inside the dealerships that want it. And they pay for it, obviously. It's a little 10x10 kiosk with a white desk. It has the Hearst certified big banner behind it. I've got, little table, chair, lamp. And then I have a set of my high heels, or red high heels on it for my branding, etc. And that is what the Lexus store took on and loved it. And I'm smart enough to know that every time Lexus corporate came in, the receptionist would call and say, oh, they're taking photos, etc. So I thought if there was a designated area, not necessarily to ink the deal, but to know that these people are certified. They all get a certificate after they take the test. I stop in all the time, and they're, it's a great group of people. Mm-hmm. And therefore they have a visual at all times of this her certified kiosk.
So the kiosk is there for the consumer just to see, or is it something you can walk up to and ask someone?
Oh, you walk up to, sit in the chair. You would almost feel like, it certainly is on my website, the photos of it. Okay. And then at dealers' banners, like I've done the Women's Expo on behalf of a Toyota dealership.
Gotcha.
I would like to think I was there signing autographs, but no one really cared. No one cared. They just go, oh, I like your red high heels. I'm like, oh. But it is what it is. I get the word out as best I can. And I get calls daily from women and men who say, I wasn't treated properly. Can you help me? And when I call a dealer and they hear it's me, they're like,
there's Cathy again. We screwed up, guys.
Yeah.
Cathy's on the phone.
Yeah. Tell her I'm not here.
Yeah. So do you think there's so the stuff you're teaching and training the dealerships specifically to sell to women, I'm assuming that's a crossover to whatever the product is, or there's something are there things that are very specific to automobiles that you wouldn't really use when you're selling a different product? Or is it pretty much you should really follow these guidelines when you're speaking to a woman and trying to sell her something?
I think it's universal.
It is, okay.
I chose automotive because it's what I know.
Mm-hmm.
I chose automotive because I felt that was truly one of the industries that had the most complaints about how they treated women, everything from sexual harassment to, and not all women are right. I've known stories where women have set up, dealerships so that they could extract money from them, and
Sure.
made it sound like they were. So I'm not all. I love men and I love the automotive industry, but I've always been respected because I believe I've respected them first. I've never given them a reason to disrespect me. Now, if they say something behind my back, I don't know about it, but I do know I have a very good reputation with the people that I do know and within manufacturers. So I'm confident. I think if I were selling, if a man or woman was selling an appliance, the same things are relevant. However, Porsche Corporation threw me a bone, no money, just so you know.
Just a bone.
And said, Ms. Droz, tell me, I'll give you a week, call me back and tell me, please, when a man and a woman walk into our Porsche dealerships, they buy the same Porsche, they pay the same amount of money, they have the same salesperson, and they actually even come in the same time of day. When we email them the customer service index where we rank from 0 to 10, let's say. Mm-hmm. The man gives us a 10 and the woman gives us an 8. And we want to know why. And I said, well, I know why. You don't have to wait a week. So it is the fact that when a woman fills out the survey, and in particular in automotive, they may have gone into the bathroom and they were out of soap. They may have gone over to pour themselves a cup of coffee and the creamer was just a drop on the counter. That, when the woman fills out the survey, that's what's on her mind. So she wasn't giving a 10, she was giving an 8, where the man doesn't care if the creamer is all over the floor, on their shirt. They smell the exhaust pipes. They had a great experience. They now own a Porsche. So, and that is universal, whether it's a Kia or a Porsche. And I would think that in the appliance industry, let's say, the woman may have felt that they let her wait too long before the salesman came back. It's the things that really matter to women that most men who run these businesses don't realize. And I will say, with automotive, customer service for women is what I believe it has them come back. It is never because they love their salesman so much or they're loyal. They come back because they had a good experience. My Lexus dealership has a baby grand piano in the middle of the dealership. The Kia dealership down the street barely has cars in it.
Right.
So, we're talking, apples to oranges here. But I've told the Kia dealership, it doesn't matter. Maybe you have the best creamers. And don't go to the woman and say, hey, our coffee is over there. Please help yourself. You say to the person, I'm going to get a cup of coffee. Would you like one? And if they say yes, you say, do you want cream, sugar? We have latte. Do you see where they want men to talk?
Right.
That's the only way we want you to open your mouth. That's the kind of customer service that women want. I know it sounds silly, but that's what makes them at the end say, okay, we've got a deal. The dealers don't want you to go another dealership.
Right.
Because they pay the same for the cars, that.
Right.
Every Ford dealership pays the same amount for their car. So how they add on their fees and so forth, that's why it's negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
and you can generally go just to the next dealership. And so those are little secrets I'll give women. I just told a woman the other day, she called from Washington, D.C., and she said, I'm a first-time buyer. I want to buy a car. What kind of leverage do I have? And I said, well, find out the Honda dealership in Maryland. How close are you to Maryland? She said 20 minutes. I said, find out if their sales tax is less than D.C. And then you use that as a negotiating. Well, you know what? I can just go to Maryland because I'll save, $220 right there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not being mean, but I think when you negotiate from your brain, not yelling and screaming. You're cheating me. This is horrible. Always, I tell any man or woman, be prepared when you go in. And to Allan, you were about to say how the industry has changed, and you are absolutely right. We here in Arizona are the headquarters for Carvana.
Yes.
Yes, we have a vending machine here, not far from us, and they changed the industry about 5 years ago. I kept warning dealers, you may have an internet department, but you're going to start to have to cater more to people, bring things to their home, etc. Well, they have to pivot in March.
Yeah, everything is changing in sales, and that and that Carvana concept, it started. So when I started seeing, obviously, why do you think online selling is so popular? Is because number one, it's convenient, but I think another huge reason is you don't have to deal with a salesperson. Exactly. And when car dealerships started to let you design your own car online, color, everything, and then all of a sudden at the end, here's the price. You walked in with that sheet of paper and you're like, here's my car. This is what I'm paying for it. I don't want to talk to you. And people loved it because they didn't have to talk to the car salesman. And it's the same. It's like companies are trying to figure out ways to eliminate the salesperson because the consumer doesn't want to talk to the person anymore, which is unfortunate because that's where sales has ended up. And I kind of train the opposite. I train you to be the salesperson that people actually want to talk to and refer, because that builds loyalty. Like, buying a car on a piece of paper is not going to build loyalty, or you're not going to get that same feeling. So yeah, you're right. And then Carvana came out. I'm like, wow, a vending machine for cars. It's unbelievable. So, but there's still going to be.
But they are used cars. Allan, you realize Carvana is all used cars.
Oh no, I didn't know that. I haven't. I've just kind of seen it, and I haven't really looked at it closely. But it's the third time this week I've heard the name Carvana. So under the same description. Right. So I did not know it was only used cars. So, but I'm sure it's going to be new cars at some point.
They'll get a franchise of some. But
yeah. So okay, we've been chatting for over 40 minutes. So this has been awesome. All right. So now we're going to get to the Ask Allan segment, and this came in from Joanne in New Jersey, and she writes, this is actually pretty good. I think I'm going to have you answer this first, Cathy. What can I do different? So Joanne asks, what can I do to differentiate myself from other sales reps? How would you answer that?
That is a personal branding question. I brand corporations, so that is my background and in marketing. And for Joanne, I differentiated myself with the use of follow through with the red high heels. So the book has red high heels on it,
There it is.
I wear red high heels, and trust me, at my age now, they're killing me. on every sales call, I pretty much only own red shoes. I photograph and do all of my videos. They will always have red high heels somewhere in them. My Instagram, that is how people, they don't remember my name. I don't put my face up too many places for obvious reasons. And so therefore that is my personal branding, but it's also my logo, and it is a seal of approval. For Joanne, I've worked with realtors that want to know how they stand out. I don't know what does Joanne, did she say?
It didn't say. She just said, how do I differentiate myself from other sales reps? It doesn't say what she did.
I can't wait to hear your answer, but I would say find something you're passionate about. In the past, I've found people who have their pets become their personal branding. The woman who wears different colored glasses, she says that's her personal branding. So the frames are green or purple, etc. Got another lady that, wears a hat. But I think she needs to find what she's comfortable with. If she doesn't like hats, don't pick that.
Right.
Don't get one. I happen to be fortunate in my line of work, what I've chosen. But you probably sit down with her for 15 minutes and you can figure out what her love is. Maybe she's a cook. Her business card.
I mean, that's a great answer, especially in the world of social media, to
yes.
really come up with a personal brand, because it's all about branding, and the folks that don't brand themselves, which is the majority of salespeople, don't know how to create a personal brand or just a brand in general of themselves or even their company. They're just going to be floating around just like everyone else is floating around through life. But if you can do so, I love that you said the personal brand. For my answer to Joanne, what I would do is two things, Joanne. Number one, you're going to differentiate yourself two ways. One, you're going to differentiate yourself in front of a customer. And the best way to do that is to tell stories. Majority of sales reps just talk about their product and talk about the technical aspects. They never tell a customer how they're going to feel after they purchase the product. If you can actually tell a customer how they're going to feel after they buy the car, or after they buy the drapes that they bought, or the washing machine, or copy, whatever it is, you elicit that emotion of what they're going to feel. That will differentiate you from everyone else that talked about just the product. So that's what you would do in front of a customer. And tagging along to the personal brand, get your butt on social media, get on LinkedIn, and post valuable content consistently. If you get on there and let's say you sell Wolfgang pots and pans, whatever your product is, you get on there twice a week and you do a 60-second video on how to cook in this pan or how to do this with this, and you just offer value. You'll start building a following. You'll start getting known as an expert in your field. And then all of a sudden, then on top of that, you can build your personal brand. So those are the two things that I would suggest. So Joanne, you got 3 really good suggestions there. So I want you to contact me again and let me know how it goes.
Oh, I like your answers, Allan. I like yours better.
No, yours was good. So anyway, we are running out of time, but Cathy, this is awesome. So tell everyone where they can find you, where they can find your book, and if they need any help with this, can they contact you? Give us all that information.
Absolutely. So my website is hercertified.com.
That's HER certified.com, right?
That is correct. And
okay.
That website has, the book is on Amazon. And if you go to the website, there's a place to click. You know how that goes.
Right. And it's called A Women's Guide to Buying a Car with Confidence and Street Smarts.
Street Smarts, right. Don't let these high heels fool you. That's the...
Got it. And it's got the red high heels on the cover. So
right, exactly. Don't let these high heels fool you. So, and I am happy if anyone wants to contact me at Cathy, CATHY, at hercertified.com. I will answer their questions. I will call their dealership and scare them, whatever.
I love that. So Cathy has got your back. If you have a bad experience at a car dealership, call her out in Arizona, and she's gonna go after that dealership for you. I love that.
Thank you.
All right. So well, much. Cathy, really, I can't thank you enough for being with us tonight. This was some great stuff. I love talking about, off the beaten, like this niche kind of sales stuff, because there's so many people that, there's so many similar sales things over and over and over again. And this was really specific. So thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Good. And you are a wonderful host.
Oh, well, thank you very much. And thank you, guests, for joining me again for episode 13. Again, it's if you want to send me a question, please do. We'd love to hear from you. It's Allan, ALLAN, at allanger.com. Al and then LANGER.com. Send me an email. Go on Apple Podcast. If you can give us a like, give us a review. We'd really appreciate it. The podcast is growing by the day, and it's all thanks to you. So again, this is Allan Langer for Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails, and we will see you next time. Cheers.